Okay, we are live, but I gotta let it breathe just for a moment while we bring on these Facebook folk who we love so much, and also our Instagram peoples. As soon as it connects, there we go there. And then one last thing, guys, and I assure you, we're gonna get things a rocking and a rolling, and we are good. Welcome in, everybody. It is the aftermath episode of the Mile High Huddle podcast. I almost just barely now, Zach said, Huddle Up podcast. I'm your host. That's vintage version of the show, Chad Jensen, and with me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zach, how are you feeling? One day removed. We got some news and stuff to get into, including a Facebook page that is deciding not to play ball with us. So I'm going to serve this over to you, just kind of how you're feeling on day, one day removed, Zach, and then I'm going to go over and drop the YouTube link on the Facebook pages. They're not playing ball with us tonight. Lovely, but how you feeling? Broncos headed to the playoffs, bro.
Listen, I can speak for a lot of people, I think, when I say I waited almost a decade for the Broncos to make the playoffs. That feeling is not going to dissipate after one night. I don't care that they played the Chiefs backups. I don't care about any circumstance. The Broncos are in, and I saw that ESPN gave them like a 32% chance of beating the Bills on Sunday. But you know what, Chad? They've been counted out all season. ESPN were among the outlets that were pushing the 5.5 wins and the worst roster in the NFL. So at least they have a chance, and I'm just happy that they're in the tournament.
I just have to hurry and post this. It'll only take a second. Facebook isn't working tonight. We're live on YouTube. All right. What's weird is Instagram worked fine, not Facebook. Okay. But yeah, dude, they might go in there and get walloped in the grill, and they're like, whoa, or they might go in there and give the Bills a run for their money. And I'll be honest with you, Zach, one day removed from just simply having broken the streak, I'm not quite sure yet what I expect to see. As we get a little bit closer and get through this week, I'll have probably a little bit better feeling. But you and I both picked them to beat the Chiefs. And look, in hindsight, it's like, oh, well, yeah, duh, it was the Chiefs backups. But guys, let us not forget the enormous just kind of pressure that created a kind of juju that it felt like for years this team couldn't get through. Like they were always going to find a way to screw it up. But I felt confident, like when it came down to the Mile High Roundtable, Zach, and we had to render our official predictions, I was like, you know what? I'm going to trust. Here I am, this guy that's been, extolling the virtues of Sean Payton since he arrived, improves on the first year by, year one, he delivers 3 additional wins in the year prior. This time he delivers a winning season. He gets it right with the quarterback. And he's been saying all year long that this team's different. I'm going to trust that. I'm going to trust it. And it turned out to be the right call. But I'm not sure yet, Zach, what I trust in terms of this matchup with the Bills on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really look at the overall the macro level of the game. It's play against the backups, and I get that, but it's the way the Broncos played. I expected them to win. I thought there's no way they can lose. I didn't expect 38-0 though. I mean, they wanted it, Chad, in every facet, and Sean Payton played to win. I mentioned that last night on the gut reaction. In the last couple of weeks, he played not to lose. He played kind of conservative. He played kind of scared. I'll use that word because it applied. Yesterday, it did not apply. The Broncos wanted it. The Broncos took it. And I just hope they can keep that mindset and momentum rolling into Buffalo. If they can, they'll have a good chance to win this game.
David Youngkin jumping in early with a super before we went live. In fact, we had
David.
1, 2, 3 pre-live supers tonight, which is just really cool. How much it shows how much we are loved here on the MHH pod and how much we love you guys back. You know this. David says, evening, I think the Jets hire Rex Ryan. Do you guys think the Broncos should open up the wallet and pay VJ? Just a thought. So remember, Zach, it's not exactly apples to apples, but the Broncos had the chance to keep Wade Phillips and his defense intact, even with incoming VJ, right, as the head coach. I'm talking circa 2017, but he wanted to be Wade, the highest paid coordinator in the NFL after what he delivered in the Super Bowl. And Elway was like, yeah, no, peace, deuces, later. Your thoughts to maybe throwing a few extra bucks? I don't think he's getting hired in this cycle, but I've been wrong before. What do you think?
First of all, the Jets are casting an extremely wide net. They're interviewing just about everyone. I wouldn't be surprised if you or I get a phone call soon from New Jersey. But the thing with VJ, he's going to be in high demand. The Broncos defense went from a top or bottom 10 unit when before he arrived, they're a top 10 unit now. I did the research today, and it's hard to dispute the data and the numbers, even though for those who don't watch the game, they don't see the collapses and the blown coverages and this and that. I don't know whether they will hire him, but I know that VJ will get some looks this cycle. And just keep in mind one thing: if he does get hired away because of the new NFL rule, they would get the Broncos 2 third-round compensatory draft picks.
Yeah, so maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing, and especially if it happens or were to happen, Zach, before anything could resolve on Jim Leonard. We'll see. But David, thank you, buddy. Papa Bear jumping in. David McElrath, congrats to the Denver Broncos and Broncos fans for a 10-7 record and going to the playoffs. Hashtag let's go Bo, MHH for life, Buckham times 3, and Denver Broncos for life. Now, Zach, we got our wires crossed with David. The gut reaction episode of the Broncos Steelers game. So like myself, Nick, bunch of us in the hotel room post game, right? So we get back from that meet and greet, and the Broncos, Bo Nix looks like garbage in that game. And we're going through, and Papa Bear made a comment just like he always does with the super chat. And then in there, he put in something like hashtag 12-5 or something as his prediction, as he is wont to do, right? I knew what it meant. I knew exactly the context of it and everything else because, even though Papa Bear listens to every show and he's in every chat, he's part of this family here, okay? But the guys around me, I'm telling you a little inside baseball, they kind of like smirked when I read the 12-5, and Papa Bear was like, yo, what's up with that? And so we had to get on the same page and clarify. But I'm telling you this story only because, Zach, this guy right here, David McElrath, saw this as the end result from day one, and I want to give him his props.
And the Broncos should have been 12-5. They should have beat the Chargers in the second matchup, and they should have beat the Bengals the following week. So, David, you were right on the money. And then even though they lost those 2 games, they finished 10-7 like you've been predicting. So hats off to you. I'm happy that you get to experience a Broncos playoff game with the rest of us.
And even that Chiefs loss, right? That should have been a dub.
Yep.
Man, still so frustrating.
Thanks, Alex.
And by the way, there is, yeah, exactly. This, and then we're going to get this very generous super, but to be up from Sam Bam, David Youngkin saying, hey, I've listened to a lot of podcasts about the game. People are saying the Broncos did nothing yesterday. But I said, wait a minute. The Chiefs head coach in DC did coach, right? Just saying. Look, it's one of those things where in this case, the style points matter. That's the determining factor here. The Chiefs, Zach, didn't go hog wild, especially on defense with scheme. Now, Andy Reid's scheme relative to the Chiefs, it's on tape, dude. How long's he been there? 2012? It's on tape. The Mahomes offense, it's on tape. They ran the offense with a different quarterback and different personnel, and shocker, it didn't look as good. Defensively, though, Zach, is where I think there is an argument to be made that Spagnuolo was holding some things back and kind of playing vanilla. But be that as it may, if the Broncos won the game, Zach, 21-10, you kind of go, yeah, whatever. But it wasn't just a win. It was a curb stomping. You know what they call a Malachi crunch? It's brutal. Teeth, curb, boot, stomping, human face forever. That's what it was. So I think the Broncos showed you where their heart was and what the caliber and depth of this team and where they're at right now.
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said the old Broncos would have maybe eked by, scraped by, won by a field goal, or made it harder on themselves than it had to have been. This game was over from the first quarter, Chad. You could tell the Broncos just came out with more intensity, a better game plan. And I know it's the B squad in Kansas City, but you can only play who's in front of you. This happens every week 18. Teams have nothing to play for, and some teams do. I don't know why there's this outrage about it now, just because Denver was the one that benefited.
And Chiefs fans, of course, they're always going to say that, right? But Sam Bam, bro, thank you for the generous super chat. I'm so happy. If you weren't in last night's live stream, I'm just going to say a few of the same things I did then, which is I'm happy for you, bro. I'm happy for all of the fans who finally got that monkey off our back in terms of the playoffs and all that stuff. And it feels good. And so thank you for the generous super chat, a top rope super chat, bro. He says, evening, guys. The Broncos, in all caps, have made the playoffs. I'm so happy that you guys and all those at MHH finally get to do a podcast about a Broncos playoff game. Hope there's many more to come. I think the Broncos will give the Bills a fight. Go Broncos. I do too. I do think it'll be hard fought. I'm just, there's a part of me that goes, well, the overwhelming force that is Josh Allen, can they really hang in there, Zach? I mean, if you look at and I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here, okay? But let's just go back and look at how the defense performed against elite quarterbacks this season. Really, Zach, only that week 10 loss to the Chiefs did they kind of hold a elite quarterback in his place and not allow him to kind of go to town. Baltimore, right? Lately, in the tail end of the season, Burrow, Herbert, that gives me some misgivings in terms of can they hold on and keep Allen. But this was something, was it Eric? Might have been Dylan. I'm not sure which. I've copy edited a few articles today, but one of the things that they said that I agreed with, I found myself nodding as I'm editing the article and getting it ready to publish, it was Eric, in fact. It was his grades article. Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan had a great game, and it was good to see after they had been torched in preceding weeks, and they needed this as a confidence booster going into Buffalo. And that, to me, I think that's very true. Now, the limits of how much that confidence boost will help them, time will tell.
First of all, thank you, Sam, as always, for your generous contribution. And it's funny because before we even went live yesterday, I hop in the room and Chad says, Zach, you finally get to cover a playoff game. So long time coming. I'm glad we all get to experience it together. And it is, at the very minimum, going to be a fight. I don't see this being a blowout loss for Denver. I see them coming out with passion, intensity, and the proper game plan. Both teams, though, play like a cardiac brand of football where they take it down to the wire, Chad. It's not good for your posterior in most cases. And when the Broncos played the Bills last season, what was the final score? It was a game-winning field goal, final second, after some drama with the penalty, 24-22. So if they win the Broncos, it's going to be one of those games where they hold Allen enough and they can maybe eke out a stunner that would shock the NFL landscape.
And that was a game where the football gods had to smile on them a little bit. There were the takeaways, then some just jaw-dropping red zone plays, including just one of the best Cortland Sutton touchdown catches of all time. And it's going to take that similar kind of thing, not just everything's got to go your way. In a sense, yes, but only from the perspective of make your own luck, right? Fortune favors the bold. Are things going our way? Yeah, because we're making them go our way, that kind of thing. But also, Zach, you need a complete complementary game. You need Bo Nix to do what he did against the Chiefs. You need the defense to, even if it's not the complete shutout smothering affair that we saw against poor Carson Wentz, Zach, you need to see it. Let's just call it the pre-week 13 Broncos defense. And then in the critical moments, good execution on special teams, good kicking, good punting, all that stuff. And you could see a big upset.
It's going to be a hostile environment, too. Very tough place to play in the regular season, let alone the playoffs. And rookie quarterback going up there, depending on the weather. It's going to be a tough fight for them. But you're right, Chad. You can't really make too many mistakes. You got to keep Allen off the field. And once he's on the field, when they beat Buffalo, they were in the midst of that winning streak, and that was keyed by very aggressive, turnover, chaotic defense. Well, that's what they have to do is hit Allen hard, hit him often, get him to the ground, and don't let the receivers or the running back break away for extra yardage. Easier said than done.
There's no doubt the Broncos are big underdogs in this game. And we want to make sure, guys, speaking of underdogs, that you are using Underdog Fantasy as the place to play, because that's what it is. If you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports, and especially the NFL, it's going to go on another 4 weeks, 3 rounds of the playoffs, then the Super Bowl. Join over 5 million fans who are already playing on Underdog with their pick'em game. So fun, and it's easy. You don't need to be a graduate of MIT. You could win money by making entries on your favorite players. Simply compete against others by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could wind up winning 1,000 times your money. Turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog.
And with their champs game, you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Like, for example, will Bo Nix have higher or lower than 231.5 passing yards on Sunday against Buffalo? Will Nix have higher or lower than 1.5 passing touchdowns? Every dog deserves a second chance, and with Underdog Rescues, you can get your money back and receive a promo if an early injury causes your entry to lose.
That's right. So download the Underdog app today. Use code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, download the Underdog Fantasy app today. Use our code MHuddle to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown. Just select higher or lower on Underdog.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
All right, David jumping in again. I'm calling it now. I see in the forecast an upset coming in Buffalo. It would be rad, dude. And some of the Tebow-esque qualities of this season, it would line up in parallel with that because everyone dismissed the 2011 Broncos after they backed into the playoffs. And the 2024 squad, Zach, didn't exactly back in. They did win one of the final 3 required to get in. But it was similar in that took them 3 bites at the apple to get that singular final decisive victory. But when Tebow and company did it, Zach, they got in on a 3-game losing streak. And it just so happened that the AFC West that year sucked. It was the last year before Andy Reid came to the AFC West, and it just was utter trash. Everyone slept on the Broncos. Not only that, Zach, but you had the defending AFC champion Steelers. So they were not only defending the AFC title, Zach, but they had that defense with the Palomalus and so many of those all-timers. And yet the Broncos went in, met them in the trenches from an intensity and a physicality perspective and just grinded it out, got it to overtime, and then we all know what happened. So I kind of see that same level of playing with house money element to this team because it did outkick its coverage. Like, I think it's great, Zach. And today, Sean Payton, what did he say? That the guys who were dogging the Broncos and whatnot before the season don't have a clue, right? And all that. And I love that. Didn't have a clue, whatever. And look, they deserve their opportunity, Zach, to stand there and kind of gloat a little bit today. Then it's on to the Bills. But they did overachieve. They did overachieve in terms of what I think even the most optimistic fans hope to see with a rookie quarterback. So they are playing with house money. Go be loose, play hard, play physical, be intense, but that freedom. Whereas you got the Bills, Zach, going into yet another postseason home game, all the pressure and expectations. That can wear on a team, as we saw with the 2012 Broncos and 2014 Broncos.
Exactly. As soon as they take the Broncos for granted or look past them even a little bit, they're going to end up being in trouble on Sunday. And I'm looking over the Bills' schedule, Chad, to prove that they're not this infallible Patriots dynasty-esque team. I mean, they beat the Jets by 3. They lost to the Rams 44-42, by the way. They eked past the Dolphins by 3. So they allowed 27 points to them, by the way, at home. And the Broncos beat them last year in Buffalo. Josh Allen was playing that game. The Broncos did not have as good of an offense. They did not have as good of a defense. It was a much different team. So they go in there and they play with the same mindset they showed against the Chiefs yesterday. They'll have a chance to take it down to the wire and, again, maybe spring a massive NFL upset.
I mean, if you look at let's just look at his last 3. At Detroit, big game, right? I mean, big opponent. He went for 362 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks, and he rushed for 68. So that was a monster game from Josh Allen. And they won that game. The next game, New England, he went 16 of 29 for 154 and a touchdown. They won that game by 3. The Jets game was the last one he played because he rested in the finale. He went, 16 of 27 for $182 and 2 touchdowns. So outside of that Detroit game and the one preceding that, which was against the Rams, where he also went for over 300 yards passing, he hasn't been like playing out of this world good, very good. I'm not trying to take anything away. I mean, he's the truth, Zach, but he's not infallible.
No, and fortunately for the Broncos, they seem to struggle against Cincinnati's elite receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Buffalo doesn't really have that. Their best receiver is probably Khalil Shakir. I mean, they have Amari Cooper, they have the rookie Keon Coleman, but none of those guys are near Chase or Higgins. So if they can just maintain their coverages, and more importantly, the front seven gets after Josh Allen, it'd be a long day in Buffalo.
Chris Chances, what's up, bro? Great to see you. Thank you for the super. He says, Broncos going into Buffalo like Count Dooku. I've been looking forward to this. The Sith controls everything. Hashtag best in the business. Hashtag Bo Vader. I love it, dude. I just hope it ends better for the Broncos than it did old Dooku, right? Getting his hands sliced off and then losing his dome to Anakin, right? I'll nerd out a little. Zach's going, but I'll nerd out a little with you, Chris. I appreciate it, big dog. Thank you, pal. We also have Razbean51. Razbean, thank you for Razbeans51. So happy for my Broncos. A little bittersweet this upcoming game, seeing Von Miller come full circle. I hadn't even thought of that yet, Zach. I mean, obviously you know that he's a Bill, but that's the first time it even occurred to me, oh, man, Von's going to be standing in the way. But he says a little bittersweet seeing Von Miller come full circle against the team that brought him to the top. Prediction, Broncos 34, Bills 31, hashtag go Broncos.
See, this is a scenario. I mean, if it gets to a score in the 30s, I don't like the Broncos' chances too much. I mentioned earlier when they beat Buffalo last season, it was 24-22. I think that's the way, is to limit Buffalo's production by smothering them on defense, and the offense doing enough to get the victory. I just don't want Bo Nix to be put in that position where he's having to go blow for blow with Josh Allen in a playoff game on the road. That's a lot of pressure for the rookie, Chad, and they have to take it off him somehow.
It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. We have Brendacho jumping in back-to-back days. He went off with a $100 super yesterday, and here he is back in the house. Thank you, bro. Says, hey, MHH fam, some food for thought. The Bills are 0-2 this season versus teams that are in the top 10 in sacks. 8 of their opponents were bottom 15 in sacks, and they were 7-1. Broncos win this game by getting to the QB and forcing Allen to make mistakes. Hashtag LGB, which is, of course, let's go Broncos, or it could be Zach, let's go Bo. But listen, that is going to be one of the deciding factors in this game. Did you get to Josh Allen? Because as good as he is and as mobile, Zach, as he is, and as physical as he is, and as hard to bring down sometimes as he is, when you really get to him, he'll make bad decisions, and the ball will come out, he'll fumble, he'll get stripped. This is one of those games where it's like, hey, Nick Bonito, you got a Super Bowl, or pardon me, a Pro Bowl nod. Jonathan Cooper, you just got a massive extension. Now it's time to go out and prove why you got, like, this is where you earn your bucks. Ask Von Miller. The legend that is Von Miller became that by virtue of what he achieved in that glorious playoff run. Like, he played in the playoffs in 2012, lost to the Baltimore Ravens. He played in 2011 too as a rookie against the Steelers and Patriots. He was good, but he wasn't like what we remember of that 2015 run. 2014 lost, he and DeMarcus Ware-Zach couldn't quite affect Andrew Luck. Everything came together though that next year, 2015. He went on to be so productive in the playoffs and Super Bowl that on top of everything else, that was like the icing that punched his ticket to future Hall of Fame. Like, he could have retired when he left. When the Broncos traded him, he could have been like, nah, I'm out. I retire. He was going to the Hall of Fame by virtue of that cachet he built up as a result of the 2015 playoff run. So let's go. This is where the edge rushers need to go out there and earn their bones. I agree, Brendacho.
And I agree with you as well, Chad. Zach Allen, I mean, he got snubbed for the Pro Bowl. He might be an All-Pro. You want to be an All-Pro, he's got to look like one on Sunday if the Broncos have a chance. It really is going to boil down to the front seven. I'm confident that the back end can hold up in coverage. But like you said, Cooper, Bonito, Jonah Ellis, and the middle linebackers as well, because Allen's going to run a lot. They have to spy him. They have a good running game with James Cook. the entire front seven, the backers and the linemen, have to be on point completely if they want to give their team a chance.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you, Brendacho. Sam Bam jumping in, number 2 super chat tonight, saying this is for your Star Wars analogy. Try, Chad. It's the effort that counts. Yeah, hey, I could try and make up a bunch of different Star Wars stuff, but I've already kind of reached my limit with what my part here with patience will allow. I can go off on a few musical anecdotes now and then, Star Wars nerdery, Lord of the Rings nerdery, that kind of thing. But eventually, Kelberman's like, we lose Kelberman. All right, we got to keep Kelberman locked in.
I just never got into it. I don't know. I mean, it never really appealed to me, Chad.
Yeah,
my head now.
The one thing from a outside of football perspective, Zach and I have very strongly in common is we're both huge Sopranos guys. Like, not just loved the show, but like we still watch the show. We read ridiculous books about the show. We watch ridiculous podcasts about a show, Zach, that's been over for 15 years, however long it's been. We do have that in common, but it ain't Star Wars. Either way, Sam Bam, appreciate the sentiment and of course the super chat. But Zach, let's get into let me get that off the screen. Let's get into just the details of your article today. Of course, it was Adam Schefter reporting that the Jets did ask for permission to interview Vance Joseph for their head coach vacancy. There have been the rumors, not just the rumors, but the reporting of the Rex Ryan connection. Now, people who are OGs know a little bit of the history and your previous experience with the Jets and how you were brought up and your dad and all that stuff. Okay. So you have a little bit more unique insight, perhaps. Do you think Rex Ryan's a legit option for these Jets?
It seems like they want to go for a retread, that they gambled on Robert Saleh, who was a first-time head coach. He got burned. Woody Johnson, the owner, did very badly, and now they want someone tried and true. That's why they're casting this net, that Chad, you'd forget about some of these names ever existed based on, how long it's been. But I don't know. It could be. I mean, he's a strong defensive mind. They don't want an up-and-comer like Ben Johnson, which would make too much sense for an organization like the Jets, who has the longest playoff drought in the NFL now, officially. Yeah. So I think so. Considering those parameters, Rex is definitely in the mix here.
It will be interesting. The one concern that naturally comes up in these scenarios when a team in the playoffs has an assistant that is up for head coaching opportunities, and maybe they're going to interview virtually while they're supposed to be game planning for an opponent. And I mean, Broncos fans went through this when we hired Vic Fangio, for example, right? Like, he was on the list, kind of. Broncos ended up staying patient. John Elway was like, look, I'm leaning towards this Munchak guy. And then the Bears, though, they were making a run, and that was the year that their defense was just out of this world. And Vic Fangio, surprisingly, the Bears got upset at home. I want to say it was it the Eagles? I'm pretty sure. Bounced them. Elway's like, heck, I waited this long, might as well interview him. The rest is history. But you have to wonder how much those kind of things influence a coordinator's focus and commitment to what's happening now. Head coach Sean Payton was asked about that today. Here's a few things he said. Quote, I think we learned to compartmentalize. I think it's a great sign, number one, for Vance. He's smart. He's a great communicator. He has a very calm and I would say strong voice. His players play extremely hard for him. He's been a great addition to our staff. My early years in New Orleans, I can recall the late Saints owner, Mr. Tom Benson, came down. We had been winning, and we had a number of coaches that had interview opportunities. I think one season we had 3 or 4. He said, Coach, we have a lot of interest in our coaches now. What do you think about that? And I said, Mr. Benson, we shouldn't worry. We should only worry when there's no interest, close quote. So he went on to talk about how, that's a good sign. And then he said, lastly here, Zach, history has told us on a number of occasions that it can be a positive for guys. From a distraction standpoint, none of that can take place until next week. I'm sure all of our focus is on Buffalo, close quote. So I'm not sure exactly what he means by that. Is there some law, some rule, Zach, that says they can't interview this week? It has to be next week?
Yeah, they keep changing it. I'm pretty sure teams in the wild card round, like the week of, I don't think a coach can interview, but when I talked about the parameters of what the Jets are looking for, VJ fits in that as well. He was a former head coach. He's been
Yeah.
around the block as a DC for years now. He's tried and true in Denver, at least this season. I don't know if he has the name that the Jets are. That's what they're always. It's a vanity thing for them, Chad. They want the shiniest, most recognizable object, not necessarily the most logical candidate. So he's going to be in the mix. I don't know if he'll get the job though, VJ.
We have some Star Wars Bo Nix puns going like crazy, like C3P Bo, Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Bonakin Skywalker. That's a little too close to a naughty. I almost said a naughty. Han Sobo. I like that one too, Sam Bam. But it's kind of interesting to me that Vance Joseph, for a team like the Jets, I get that they're looking for a retread, someone who's been there before. It would kind of be unique. There are a few exceptions to this rule, but for the most part, head coaches don't return to their former team. But we saw John Gruden do it in recent canon. We saw it almost happen, Zach, with Mike Shanahan. Joe Gibbs did it back in the day with Washington. It has happened, but at least Rex Ryan, his resume, look, he didn't have a lot of success when he went to Buffalo, but those early Rex Ryan Jets teams, man, they were legit. Was it 09,
And
10,
10, yeah.
and then 11, they were still really good, but that's when things started to kind of fall apart. The butt fumble, if memory serves, was the 2011 season. But either way, Vance Joseph, he was technically a retread. He's a defensive guy. He's well respected by his players and whatnot, Zach, but like he achieved zero success as a head coach. I mean, 5-11, 6-12, or was it? I think how many wins? I think he delivered 11 total wins, if memory serves. So
6-10 and 5-11, I think.
yeah. So hey, if I'm an NFL team, I'm probably passing on VJ. I want to see him do what he did this year one more time, and then maybe it's like, okay, he's a legit candidate once again. But hey, you see all kinds of questionable coaching hires get made the league over, year in, year out.
And some guys are just better number twos. Like we talk about the Sopranos. I mean, Silvio even said that in the show, Chad, that some guys are just cut out to be the consigliere, not necessarily the boss. And
Yeah.
Wade Phillips was the same thing. He was an excellent, legendary Hall of Fame defensive coordinator, not so great as a head coach. Same with Marty Schottenheimer, for example. But for VJ's perspective, the Jets might not seriously want him, but it's an appealing job for him. It's a huge media capital. He get a lot of publicity there. He also has a ton of talent to work with on that defense and a ton of talent on offense as well. Let's be honest. They're just really a quarterback away and some healing from the fractures in that locker room from being a competitive team again.
If you were a viable head coach candidate in this cycle, what's the most coveted opening to you?
Patriots, easily.
Patriots or Bears?
I like Drake May more than Caleb Williams. That would be my criteria as well. I mean, that's what Ben Johnson's looking for right now. It's between those two teams. But Patriots, not only do they have Drake May, they have $100 million in salary cap space. There'd be no expectations he'd get 3 or 4 years there, I would assume. So I'm going New England.
I would concur. The only caveat would be, hey, Caleb Williams played a lot this year, like the whole season. He got some experience, and you can go, well, it's either you could view that as a good thing or a bad thing in that, was it good experience? Was it bad experience? Was he damaged by what he kind of went through? But yeah, I agree. If I'm a coach, I want the winning ways, even though it's been a couple of years. I want the winning ways, the financial wherewithal that the Patriots have, and not just the cap space, like you mentioned, but an ownership group that will spend and that's, tippity top of the league, one of the greatest franchises in NFL history, which the Bears are too. But the Bears haven't really done much, let's face it, since the 85 Super Bowl. Yeah, they got to that one Super Bowl with Rex Grossman and Brian Urlacher and got decimated by Peyton Manning and the Colts. But really, that's about it. You can point to the NFC Championship game that Jay Cutler led him to where he injured his ACL. But that was a close but no cigar, and it was also an outlier. The Bears, they're just one of those teams, Zach, that it's almost like kind of like how we talked about with the Broncos. It's like, man, what deal did John Elway make with the football devil? to win Super Bowl 50 because we're paying the price these ensuing 8 years. And it's kind of like that with the Bears. It's like they were such a prolific franchise in the pre-Super Bowl era NFL. And then they even had, of course, the mid to late 80s run with Ditka and everything, that maybe they used up all their blessings, so to speak, from the football gods. That's me being a little bit superstitious, but they seem a little cursed. I'm going to look at the Patriots as opposed, but Patriots, to me, Zach, last thing, and I'm going to serve it back.
Yeah.
Vrabel, dude. This is like, to me, the stars are aligning. But you did draft a number 3 overall quarterback. You want to make some hay with that. And it can be done. Defensive-minded coach with, if you get the right quarterback, Belichick did it.
That's the exact word I was going to use when it comes to Chicago. And we don't cover them, but that's what I've seen from the outside is cursed. With the quarterbacks they've drafted, all the moves they've made in the last 20 years, and hasn't really availed them. So New England has a better franchise quarterback, I think, for the long term. I've been more impressed by Drake May's film than Caleb Williams' film. He has the worst supporting cast. So you get some receivers in there, some running backs, some linemen. There could be something. And also with Vrabel, they just went with Gerard Mayo, a defensive-minded coach. I think in this go-around, you would want an offensive-minded guy. And who better than Ben Johnson, by the way?
True. I just tried to reconnect to Facebook just to see. It so far hasn't like kicked me out, but I'm not seeing it on the page itself. Let me try one more time. And then we'll get to a couple more supers rolling in. Hang tight, guys. No, we're on. So, hey, Facebook. Suddenly we're on Facebook. So that's cool. Let me try connecting real quick. Sorry to do this to everybody, but let me just try connecting to the podcast Facebook page. Let's see what Taylor says here. He says, Zach and I, or wait, nope, I got to get this one first. Sam Bam, here's my apology for that Star Wars calamity I created. Go Broncos. 3rd super chat of the night.
Thank you,
no
Sam.
Calamity. It's fun. We like to have fun on this show. Samantha, 641 Zach. Samantha, she makes me laugh. I can't flash the super though. It's kind of funny. Taylor Christensen, what's up, bro? He says, Zach and I were right. This season felt different. Yeah, you, Zach. Oh, it doesn't want to connect. And Sean Payton, I was going to say. So let me remove this Denver Broncos coverage one. Oh, well, we'll charge it to the game. At least one of them. It's streaming there. But Zach, Taylor's saying we were right about the season feeling different.
You and I think we're in lockstep with that too. We watched, how OTAs played out. We watched how Bo Nix climbed the depth chart. We saw how he played in preseason, and we knew he was ready. And we knew it just felt different. You have that gut feeling after so many years of covering the team, so many years of watching the team, so many disasters. This one did not feel the same way. A lot of people felt that way as well. But Taylor, I appreciate the shout out for sure.
Facebook, if you are just joining us, sorry that you're only catching half the show. It would not connect to Facebook tonight. And for craps and giggles, I decided to try one last time and it worked. So still some kind of weird back end bug going on between StreamYard and Facebook that we've been unable to resolve, unfortunately. Jason Kopp, what's up, dude? Thank you for the super chat. He says, good evening, gentlemen. I just wanted to say how proud I am of this team. Preseason predictions had us at 5.5 wins and near the bottom of the league. Playoffs didn't even feel possible with the rookie QB and huge dead cap. Let's freaking bow. I don't know. But Zach, thank you, Jason. I loved that today too. Like Sean Payton, if Mr. Producer's off today, so he would probably have this to play the clip. But when he was asked about it, Sean Payton today, well, you know what, Zach? Why don't you reply to Jason, and I'm going to see if I can pull up his comment today.
You mentioned something that Sean Payton said before the season, that he laughed off the record predictions that he never won fewer than 7 games in a season or whatever he said.
Yep.
And he knew, he was confident. It's the same coach that kicked Russell Wilson out, the same coach that said, I'll be better than Nathaniel Hackett. He's backed up all the talk. Some of it's taken a while, but all of it's come true for Sean Payton. So we're all proud of the Broncos. They all heard the noise. They had enough bulletin board material. They were counted out. The biggest dead cap hit, the worst roster, 5 wins, and they responded in kind. Thank you, Jason.
I had to be reminded that it was a conference call today. So I'm just going to read this. Here's what he said as far as all the negativity from the outside. Quote, we all like a challenge, right? It's not, I guess it's like a challenge when someone says X. The first thing I think of is, who is that someone? When someone during the draft says, well, this is ... You guys heard me talk about it. I think you're looking for competitive players and competitive people in this industry. Then he tells a little Sean McVay anecdote. Then he brings it back. And he says, I think your players certainly do have a little bit of a chip when they see those initial prognostications or whatever. Then eventually, when you're in this long enough, you tune out that stuff because half those people don't have a clue about what they're talking about. Yes, who's done this before with over 80 million, meaning who's made the playoffs, Zach, with over 80 million in dead cap, all those things you think about. No one's done that before. Let's be the first one. So the Broncos, dude, that's one of the things where it's like, Wayne's World, we're not worthy, like bow down, give Sean Payton his props. You not only delivered a winning season, but a playoff berth with almost a record. Now, Russell Wilson's 85 million. That was a record for an individual dead money hit. But the Broncos didn't quite, from a team perspective, have the record this year of the most dead cap ever carried in a season. They were short by like $500,000. Okay. But 91.2 million in dead money that all their opponents were able to spend on personnel. The Broncos had plans elsewhere. So even more props to Sean Payton.
And it's amazing what happens when you hit on a quarterback in the first round and he becomes your franchise guy. I just want to give a shout out as well. I mean, no one's talking about him, but we should. And he's been catching a lot of crap since the Russell Wilson trade. Is George Payton. He's drafted tremendously, Chad. Every year he's been a part of the organization. You can say that Sean Payton's running the show now, but George Payton's scouting skills are being put to use. And the nucleus of the team now are the guys that he's imported. That's why when you don't have the money to go through free agency and add to the team that way, you build through the draft. That's how you become a consistent contender.
Yeah, we got you, Jason. Let's frickin' Bo. Got you. We got you. By the way, we have received multiple questions. I didn't want to forget to bring this up again, but we received multiple questions from the Super Chat Superstar community going, hey, aren't we going to do a Mount Rushmore unveiling for the 2024 year? And the answer to that is yes. We weren't able to get it done by the end of the year. This time we could have actually, but we chose to wait till the season was over. Then there was a few different vacations that some guys went on, specifically Mr. Producer, who we rely on for that statistical information, because the way that the Mount Rushmore for the year is categorized is strictly cumulative rankings. So the most is number one, the second most, biggest donators, 2, 3, 4, so forth. So bringing it back, what we're doing is Thursday night, we're going to do the head-to-head preview of Broncos Bills. We're going to have a great show. And then during that show, we're also going to unveil the 2024 MHH Super Chat Superstar Mount Rushmore. It's going to be a gas.
Cannot wait for that, Chad. Absolutely. It's going to be a fun time.
We have Max Rio jumping in 2 nights in a row. Love it, dude. Thank you, pal. Up in Canada, proving Broncos country is not a geographic location. It's a state of being, baby. He says, evening, gents. So happy they're in the tourney. Now, let's go make some noise and show them who we are. Let's freaking go Broncos. I think it's weird how people are like going, it's kind of funny how Sean Payton calls the playoffs the tournament. It is a tournament. It's single elimination, sudden death. That's what it is. It's been called that for time immemorial, even if it's not like common parlance, Zach. But apparently it's being credited to Parcells, Bill Parcells. So why does Sean Payton call it the tournament instead of the playoffs? Because that's what Bill Parcells called it, etc. I just think it's a funny little aside.
Yeah, the connotation would be basketball with the tournament, like March Madness, but it definitely applies to the NFL as well. And Max, your point's well taken here. If they can just get in and make it a game, make it competitive after the season they had, defying all expectations, winning 10 games, clinching a playoff berth, I think we would settle for that. But of course, we want the Broncos to spring that sweet, sweet upset victory.
By the way, shouts to our Instagram peeps. I don't see any specific questions we haven't covered already, but if you're with us live, like Saul, Just Incredible, Maloney, Kingston, Speed Demon. Great to see you. Okay. We are at 44 minutes, and I'm really sorry, Facebook, that we in fact, let me check and see. We've got sorry guys, we're about out of time here. Pearl, we know who you are. It looks like you were able to get your at least one Facebook account back up and rolling. That's good to see for you. And then she's also right here rocking it on YouTube. So like when it wasn't showing up on Facebook, she's like, I'll go find it on YouTube. There she was. And then here she is now. So really cool. Good to see you, Pearl. I'm just going to take a quick gander here at some of the topics maybe in the chat we didn't get to tonight before we roll out of here. While I'm looking at this, Zach, what did you think of Bo's podium remarks last night after the game, and just kind of some of his thoughts on how the Broncos had been discounted and slept on and all that?
I thought he never really surprises me with how he handles the media and the questions. Like a pro, consummate professional. I did like how you can tell that he realized for the veterans in that locker room, the Cortland Suttons, the Garrett Bowleses, this meant a lot to them. So I feel like he was very grateful and appreciative to help them get there. That's what I took away from it.
Do you think about that, man? Those guys have been toiling in relative obscurity their entire careers. This time of year, every year, they're done. And this kid comes in his first year, we go to the playoffs. Like, what the Sam Hill? Like, if you're Cortland Sutton, you're Garrett Bowles, you're going, oh, I'm like Bowles, he's locked in for another few years, right? But Sutton, if I'm Sutton, I'm going, this feels good, this tastes good. I got a great relationship here going with Bo Nix, our chemistry, 1,000-yard season, playoffs. Next year's a contract year. I'm willing to take a little less money to stick around if it means I get to continue my Bronco career and I get to play with Bo Nix and Sean Payton. James Moss, what's up, big dog? Great to see you. Says, just an observation, but Bo reminds me of, from Rocky IV.
Oh, Drago.
Ivan Drago.
Yeah.
Bo Drago. LOL, I must break you. Right? That guy. Dude, you know what I think of? I'll nerd out with you guys. We're at the tail end. So what's that actor's name? His name is Dolph Lundgren, that guy. What I think of is the live-action He-Man that was made called Masters of the Universe back in the day. It was, in hindsight and completely objective as an adult watching the movie, it's pretty trash. But I loved it, dude, because I was a kid, Zach, in the 80s. You know, I was born tail end of the 70s, okay? So, like, I grew up Transformers. I'm talking OG Transformers, okay? He-Man, G.I. Joe, Star Wars in particular. But He-Man was one of my faves because of the cartoon and the action figures. So when they made that live action, dude, I was here for it. And I heard they're like trying to reboot it as live action. Time will tell. But Dolph Lundgren shouts.
Of course they are. They'll reboot anything nowadays, Chad, to make a buck. But I don't know if it's a hot take. This happens to be my favorite Rocky movie. Don't know why. It always stuck with me. It's a great flick to me.
So much drama in that one, you know. I mean, they're all pretty dramatic, but I'm with you, dude. Like, I would, for me, I go like this: Rocky 1, Rocky 4.
Mm-hmm.
Rocky 2 is really good too, but I guess it would depend a little bit on my mood. But thank you, James. It's really good to see you, big dog. I want to grab this from Rod on Facebook. He says, I'm not really worried about the Bills. Their secondary is suspect, and we have big receivers. If, here's the caveat, Zach, Sean lets Bo play, we should beat him.
Yeah, I mean, you threw the ball downfield against the Chiefs' backups. It wasn't just all screen passes. And even when they did throw screens, they were executed well. The blocking was on point. But you got to let Bo be Bo. If he wants to run some design runs and RPOs, you got to do that. Take advantage of his legs. Just don't have Bo lateral to Javonte Williams, and he should be okay. But I 100% co-sign that comment.
Pearl, we talked a little bit about this last night, and I agree. She says, I'm just sad for Justin Simmons. He could not be here. Yeah. I feel for him. And it was interesting, Zach. Was it during the actual, I think it was during Broncos Chiefs, CBS flashes like a little info chyron, all right? And it's like an infographic, and it shows their Pro Bowlers and whatnot. And guess who was on there listed as a Bronco? None other than Justin Simmons. So I'm sure he was there in spirit. Like, I'm sure he's stoked for his boys. but he was one of those guys that would have been cool to see him get to the promised land. And even this year, like he signs with the Falcons, Kirk Cousins on the heels. You're going, oh, that's probably, you can't expect Kirk Cousins to do anything in the playoffs, Zach, but he's almost like a guaranteed, like Peyton Manning back in the day, set and forget for a playoff berth. So I thought Justin Simmons, his outlook was pretty good for finally breaking that ice, but wasn't meant to be.
I'm looking and he's made over $70 million in his 8-year career. I can't feel that bad for him, Chad. And also the fact that he was replaced by a better player. I've been more impressed with Brandon Jones at safety, just his consistency, his hard hitting, and also his coverage chops that it's made Simmons like a non-entity now in Broncos country.
It's kind of interesting. One of the things Sean Payton said last week between the Bengals and Chiefs game, in the wake of the Pro Bowl news, how Brandon Jones was voted an alternate. They're like, "Hey, coach, talk about Brandon Jones, what you saw from him, what you've seen from him, etc." And I'll paraphrase. One of the things he talked about was just how hard he works, and he even goes on to say, maybe even too hard at times. If you have guys that maybe work too hard, like you got to worry that they're overdoing it, you probably did something right. And they have one on each side of the ball. Brandon Jones on defense, Jaleel McLaughlin's still the first guy there every day. Like Bo Nix is like not getting much sleep because he can't be seen as the guy who's not the first guy to the building. And Jaleel's there at like 4:30. He's like, come on, dude, let me get that extra 30, etc. Cool to see.
And that's another feather. Again, I talked about George Payton, and I guess to an extent Sean Payton, but just finding these players that can contribute and making upgrades on your roster. I thought the two of them, Chad, the Paytons, had a tremendous year in that regard.
Jason Kopp again, bro. Thank you. He says nothing to lose. I say we pass every play, throw the ball all over the field, trick plays, don't run the ball once. I get what you're saying, and it would probably end up Jason coming out in the wash pretty dang similar to if they did not call a run play all day. But in the playoffs, you will get exposed for that against these better teams that are more experienced and more talented, not more talented than you, but more talented than the weekly fare you typically face in the regular season. If they know you're not going to run the ball, then you're going to be dead in the water. They can sell out to stop the pass. They can do a lot of different things if they know what's coming. Even if they don't know the play, they know it's a pass. But you're not going to be all that disappointed, Jason. The Broncos can't run the ball. That's what I said yesterday as one of my misgivings about them being a playoff team is like, hey, how's this kind of weak run game thing going to resolve for them? They'll do it just enough, Zach, to keep it as a plausible threat for the defense to wonder if this might be a run. It's going to be a passing attack. You're going to live by that sword, die by that sword. Hopefully they continue living by it.
I get the feeling, though, and maybe it's just, hopeful optimism that they're going to debut Bo in specifically designed running plays. How many tush pushes, Chad, and 4th and shorts did Bo Nix sneak the ball against Kansas City? And on the design runs we've seen this season, he is a really adept runner. Not only should they run the ball, they have to run the ball if they want to have a chance on offense, if only to put some points on the board and keep Buffalo's offense off the field. Big day for McLaughlin, potentially. That Buffalo defense is soft up the middle. And I hope Estimate Chad can get more than a few carries to show what he can do because he could be that battering ram that makes that Bills defense a little softer in the fourth quarter.
So Jason McKeever on Facebook, is Amari Cooper going to miss the game? And I just decided to go to our sister site, Buffalo Bills on SI. And here's what they are reporting. This is from Coach McDermott today, said, quote, Amari Cooper has not yet returned to the team after being excused over the weekend for a personal matter. He's hopeful he'll be available for Sunday's game, but right now is taking it a day at a time, close quote. So my prediction, I mean, I don't know the severity of this personal matter, Zach, but you worked all, it's like that famous line of Bill Parcells on the sideline when he was the Giants guy, trying to rally his guys like, look, this is why you come in early. This is why you work in the offseason. This is why you lift all those weights. This is why you do that SHI, da-da-da-da-da. Same thing, like Amari, this is why we worked hard and did everything we did this season. We need you. Broncos are coming to town. I would be surprised if he's not on the field.
I would too. I mean, depending on the severity of the matter. But even if he plays, he's been pretty much a non-factor in Buffalo. He's like basically just a blocking wide receiver. The bigger issues at receiver for the Bills are Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir, who's probably Josh Allen's number one target. So even if Amari plays, I wouldn't fret too much about that.
So as a Bill this season, Amari has appeared in 8 games, 4 starts, 20 receptions, 297 yards, 2 touchdowns. So yeah, it's but still, it's Amari Cooper. I mean, you look at his resume, right? This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-time 1,000-yard receiver, but he's getting up there, Zach. He's getting long in the tooth relative to NFL receiver shelf lives.
I think you might want to start throwing around the W word when it comes to Amari Cooper, unfortunately.
Let's take a look. Colby wants to know, what about the weather? Forecast, Buffalo, Broncos, Sunday. Let's see what the forecast is. I'm looking here. Early Buffalo forecast. So let's see. Both models suggest flurries off of Lake Erie, but as of Monday, accumulations look. Temperatures will be in the upper 20s with winds out of the northwest, somewhere between 5 to 15. So there's possibilities of some precipitation, whether that's snow or rain, probably snow. But it looks like it's mostly going to be just cold, Zach, and a little bit windy.
Yeah, nothing unfamiliar for Bo Nix, who played at Oregon and now plays in Denver. It's. I don't think it's an advantage one way or the other, Chad, if it's cold and a little blustery on Sunday.
There you have it. But we'll know as we get a little bit closer to the game itself. But guys, this has been a great conversation. Want to keep it going, but we're about out of time. So this is your last call while we go through some matters of business. Any burning topics, supers, get them in the chat now.
I literally cannot believe it's been almost an hour. Another tremendous episode, as always, of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and don't forget about Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch, like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com. Get you some. If you haven't done so yet, drop us a follow, a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football pre-save 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, very important that you subscribe, you like, you share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. Really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Hey, shouts to Speed Demon on Instagram, who's saying, good evening, Chad and Zach. Have to watch out for Shakir. Also, shouts to Jimmy. You know who you is. What's up, Jim? And then, Zach, we got one last 11th hour super from longtime Super Chat superstar Steve Griffith saying, what's up, fellas? Although I got to say, it's been a minute. I'm glad to see you come back to the MHH campfire, dude. We have missed you. We're like Champ Kind on, in Ron Burgundy, where we miss your Musk. I want to be near you. That whole scene. What's up, fellas? Steve says, enjoying this playoff berth for the first time in almost a decade, and I'm confident we get the dub. Go Broncos, #Denver Broncos for life. I just feel, again, I'm going to use the phrase I used yesterday, and I've said it at least once tonight, Zach. I like this. I feel like we're kind of playing with house money. We're carefree.
Absolutely.
And the cool thing that gives me even more confidence is, yeah, it's like we were talking about earlier, Zach. You're going against an opponent that has all those expectations of being perceived as a juggernaut, having been to the playoffs every year for the last 4 or 5 years with Josh Allen and this head coach combination. They have these expectations outside of the pressure that the Broncos put on them, just the outside, the circumstances, the fans there in Buffalo. It's a lot to shoulder, and it's hard for teams to do. We saw it again, 2012 Broncos, 2014 Broncos, the 96 Broncos. We've seen it, and it's not 2005 Broncos, AFC title game. Sometimes when you're that team that might be a little less talented, a little less experienced, but you don't have those pressures, those external intangible things that are kind of putting pressure, Zach, on all the joints and all the connections, it can turn out differently, right? It can be the you don't know how it's going to shake out. So that's one thing I agree with you on, Steve, for sure. I agree that the Broncos have that house money they're playing with, Zach.
And not to mention the ghost of seasons past for the Bills in the playoffs, all the wide rights and all the losses and title games and divisional rounds, even in the Josh Allen era. And I'll tell you right now, they're not really paying that much mind. I'm just going to assume what they're really looking forward to, I think, Buffalo, is Kansas City. That's been their Achilles heel for years. They want to advance past them. The Super Bowl goes through Kansas City. They want to finally get there in the Allen era. And if they're overlooking Denver, I've said it before, I'll say it again all week, it's going to be a problem for them on Sunday.
All right, guys. Jason says, I'm just grateful to still be talking about this season and not turning to the draft and free agency yet. LOL. Yeah,
Same.
not only that, dude, but even if they get bounced by the Bills, we're not talking about a quarterback search, a coach, GM. It's going to be a straight up old fashioned and just off season. And the cool thing this time, Zach, Broncos have 50+ million in cap space. They got all their draft picks. The closest approximation we've had as a community to what we're about to experience in the offseason is the 2020 offseason when we had Drew Lock and the same head coach going into an offseason. But more apt is like, whatever shakes out this season, Zach, it's going to feel a lot like 2012, 2013. Coach isn't going anywhere. Quarterback's not going anywhere. GM's not going anywhere. How do we get past whatever hump held us back this last season?
And knowing you have your franchise quarterback already takes such pressure off the decision makers. You could just build, the nest around him. And also that quarterback is still on his rookie contract. So it gives you a nice window for the next couple of years. The Broncos are in a good position.
All right, guys. And also last thing I'm going to say here before I give my shouts is props, kudos to the Walton Penner ownership group. They deserve a lot of credit for where the team is because they went out, they spent the money to get Sean Payton. They were willing to make some of the organizational sacrifices relative to getting him here, including the draft picks given up to the Saints. And they've done everything they can do as an ownership group, Zach, to maneuver the chess pieces to get to this point. So I'm really happy for them. And I know Sean Payton was in the locker room after yesterday's win.
You know what I like about them most, besides them shelling out millions on fields and the fan experience and the team, is that they're not meddling in day-to-day operations. It's not a Woody Johnson. It's not a Jerry Jones. They let the football people do the football things, and they're basically the giant checkbook. That's the stability the Broncos have needed and lacked in the Pat Bowlen, the post-Pat Bowlen era.
A mile-high salute and a special shout-out to all the great Super Chat superstars tonight, helping us keep the lights on, like Sam Bam going off multiple times, the Papa Bear, David McElrath, David Yunkin, multiple supers, Chris Chances, great to see you, bro. Raz Beans 51, Brendacho back-to-back nights, Taylor Christensen back-to-back days, Jason Kopp, Max Rio back-to-back, James Moss, Jason Kopp, and great to see Steve Griffith back at the MHH campfire. Much love and respect, guys. Listen, Zach and I are off till Thursday night, but when we return, not only are we going to do the are we going to give VJ any credit from Triple G? Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
big props. It was against the backups yesterday, but they completely smothered the Chiefs. I mean, it was so bad that you had linebackers like Justin Strnad not even qualify for a grade from MHH because the floor to qualify for an in-game grade with Trickle's system is 20 snaps. On defense, that should be more than enough, but they didn't need to. Like that, they just completely smothered them, Zach. And what I liked about it was the bounce back nature after kind of going on a bit of a slide week 13 through Cincy. So nice little confidence boost. Nice for VJ and his crew to kind of get back on their feet just in time for that next level of intensity that's going to take place in the playoffs.
Imagine that they play better when Strnad gets no snaps. But Triple G, go back and rewatch the show when I talked about VJ getting the interview with the Jets. I gave him credit. I said the stats and the numbers back it up. And he might get the job, he might not, but he's definitely earned a few interviews this coaching cycle.
So, yeah, shouts to you as well, Triple G. Thanks, buddy. But, yeah, Thursday we'll do the head-to-head. And then also we'll do the Mount Rushmore unveiling of 2024. Eric Flynn throwing down a super chat, one of our Facebook studs, jumping in to throw down a super on YouTube. Thank you, Eric, for finding us. We were able to finally get it connected. I don't know if you saw that, but it was about half an hour into the show. So it's great to see you tonight, big dog. Thank you, buddy. So with that, we got one last thing, and Zach and I will, of course, see you on Thursday.
Have a great start to your week. Revel still. We're on a Buffalo, but enjoy the fact that the season is already a success. The Broncos are in the playoffs. We will see you Thursday to break down their playoff matchup at Buffalo. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.